Good evening, and welcome to the Westminster City Council Candidates Forum as we prepare for the May 9th municipal election. I'm Erin Watley, Vice Chair for the Community Media Center of Carroll County Board of Directors and Associate Professor in the Communication and Cinema Department at McDaniel College in Westminster, and the owner of Intersect Consulting, a DEI facilitation and assessment company. Tonight's forum is being held at the Community Media Center and broadcast live on cable channels 19 and HD 1086. It is also being streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and the Community Media Center website at carrollmediacenter.org. The forum tonight will be available on demand viewing and will repeat regularly on our cable channels until the election. The Community Media Center is providing this programming as a public service. The CMC does not endorse any political candidates or political organization. The CMC's goal is to establish an equal platform for political advocacy and provide local residents with information about individuals seeking public office. We encourage citizens to learn more about the candidates, engage with others in your community about what you learn, and take an active part in the electoral process. I will now turn the program over to our moderator, Bob Blubaugh, the CMC's Managing Editor of Digital Content.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate it. We are really pleased to have all four candidates who are running for 3 seats on the nonpartisan Westminster Common Council. We have Kevin Dayhoff, Ann Gilbert, Greg Pecoraro, and Dr. Scott Willens. So let's get to the rules for tonight's forum. We're going to probably go for about 75 minutes tonight. So going in alphabetical order, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. That will be followed by a question and answer session. In that case, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. They will answer identical questions. There will be no debate, no rebuttal. At the conclusion of the Q&A period, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. All responses will be timed, and the candidates will be able to see the clock as it ticks down. A bell will sound when time has elapsed, and the moderator, myself, may immediately continue that statement or answer at that time. So let's get to the opening statements. Our candidates may now introduce themselves and present a 2-minute opening statement. And let's start with Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Bob. Hi, I'm Kevin Dayhoff, and I'm running for one of the 3 Westminster Common Council seats available in the upcoming May 9th city election. I'd like to thank the Community Center for this opportunity to share my leadership vision for the future of the city of Westminster. I love my job and I love Westminster, and it's certainly been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Westminster as an elected official since 2019 for the past 4 years. I'm a retired farmer, business owner, historian, fire and police chaplain, artist, and writer. I previously served as the Westminster mayor from 2001 to 2005, and as a council member from 1999 to 2001. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the last 4 years with council members Ann Gilbert and Greg Pecoraro, along with Mayor Mona Becker, council members Dan Huff and Tony Cavacci. We work for you. We are excited about the opportunity to continue working together. We have been working hard to thoughtfully put together a relentlessly positive and kind campaign. In the last 4 years, we've gotten a lot accomplished with fresh new ideas based upon decades of experience and leadership in the city of Westminster. But there's still lots more work to be done. I would like to roll up my sleeves, work hard, and put all those experiences to work and do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilbert.
Thank you, Bob and Erin and the Community Media Center for allowing us all the opportunity this evening. My name is Ann Gilbert, and I am a lifelong resident of Westminster. I am a candidate for re-election to the Westminster City Council because I care about our community and I care about the direction our community will go in the future. I, along with my colleagues, have worked diligently over the past 4 years. City administrative offices have moved to their permanent city-owned buildings. We began a unique water reuse program, Pure Water Westminster. We obtained funding for multiple projects from water main replacements to remodeling our city pool, just to name a few of the few of the things. We need to continue the progress we've been making. We need to build on our successes and maintain our infrastructure, our roads, our water, our sewer. We always need to support public safety and the perception of safety for our business owners as well as our citizens. We need to maintain prudent fiscal planning to ensure we are investing in future generations. Additionally, it is now time to have a concentrated effort put forth for our Main Street revitalization, including economic development, updating our zoning codes, and focusing on long-range planning for our city. During my 4 years of service, I have worked to serve the citizens of Westminster in a professional, respectful, and thoughtful manner, striving to capture and grow the community feeling of Westminster. I'm asking that you again vote for me so that I can continue to work and guide our talented and amazing staff to provide a safe, healthy, enjoyable, and welcoming place to visit, love, work, and play.
Thank you. Mr. Pecoraro.
Well, thanks to you, Bob, and the Community Media Center for hosting this event. And thanks to our audience here and at home. It's great to see people interested in the future of our community. That's what this election is about. It's your chance to have a say in what the future of Westminster will look like through your elected representatives. Tonight, we're going to talk about how we think we can contribute to that better Westminster we all want. I'm looking forward to that discussion now and in the months and years ahead. I've had the privilege of serving you on Westminster's Council on and off for several years. And for the last few years, my colleagues honored me by electing me as council president. Over the years, I played a leading role in several important initiatives here in the city. I'm proud of what we've accomplished by working together on a shared vision of Westminster as a safe and enjoyable place to live and work. Westminster still faces many challenges. We're still working to ensure a water supply that will allow us to provide the right mix of economic opportunities, amenities, and housing. We're policing our city in a different way now, and while the real crime rate is low, we're still working to make sure everyone feels safe in their homes and in our public areas. I'm committed to ensuring that Westminster grows wisely, prioritizing development that adds amenities we want to our community and creates local jobs for residents. I'm also committed to the revitalization of our downtown and older neighborhoods and protecting the Wakefield Valley from overdevelopment. I hope you will allow me to continue working on these challenges with my current partners in city government. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Willens.
Thank you, Bob. Hello, Westminster friends and neighbors. I'm Dr. Scott Willens. I would like to thank the Community Media Center for hosting this event, as they always graciously do, as well as my fellow candidates, not only for their participation in the forum, but also for their selfless service to the City of Westminster on the City Council, as well as a myriad of other elected committee and volunteer positions they've held. I joined the Army after 9/11, and in 2022, I retired as a lieutenant colonel with 20 years of active duty service and an Iraq War deployment. I'm also a veterinarian and animal hospital owner, board certified in preventive medicine, and I hold a PhD in pharmacology. I chose Westminster as my home in my Army retirement, along with my wife Deborah, my son Matthew, our 2 rescue beagles Daisy and Leonidas, and our thoroughbred named Winter. I'm privileged to serve on the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project Board of Directors and lifetime membership in VFW Post 467. The City of Westminster has so much to offer, from rich history and heritage to exceptional schools and business opportunities. How do we bridge what's best of our past and present, diverse cultures and ideas, and lifelong residents and newcomers? One Westminster, safety, prosperity, and accountability. And essential focus on revitalization and the rezoning, a 27-year-old zoning that has not been thoroughly scrubbed since 1996. I hope to be able to clarify that platform through tonight's questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's turn to the Q&A portion of tonight's forum. The questions posed to tonight's candidates are a mixture of prepared questions, questions submitted in advance by Westminster residents, and questions brought to us from members of tonight's audience. Questions may have been edited or combined for clarity and to condense them to make them go quicker. We'll get to as many as we possibly can in the allotted time tonight. Candidates, remember, you'll each have 90 seconds to respond to each question. And Mrs. Gilbert, you will be the first to answer. We'll start with you. Lucky you.
Lucky me.
So we'll go to question number 1. A submitted question from a Westminster resident. How long have you been a resident of the City of Westminster, and how are you involved in the city's community? For example, are you a member of any Westminster-specific community organizations?
Okay, as I stated in my opening statement, I've been a lifelong resident of Westminster, and my family dates back over 300 years to Carroll County and the Westminster area. As far as what community involvement I have, I've had community involvement ever since I was a child. From the organizations I belonged in as a child to when I became a parent, I was active in my kids' parent-teacher organizations. I participated in multiple organizations from the children's chorus and held offices with them, which is how I met many people that I still interact with today. Currently, as I fast forward, I am a 25-year employee of the Carroll County Department of Social Services, where I am a adult protective service worker. And I serve on the board of directors with the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project. I have held several other positions throughout the community, but currently that is that is what I'm serving on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pecoraro.
Thanks, Bob. I grew up in Carroll County, just outside the city, about 10 miles south. In 1989, I bought my first home here in the city and have lived here ever since. Over the years, I've been involved with a number of community organizations. I was active with the YMCA. I was a youth advisor for some youth groups there, and at the high school. I'm involved in my church, where I serve as a lector, on Sundays at church. I've been involved in a lot of community organizations, civic groups, task forces, like one on the future of Carroll County Public Schools, put together by the superintendent a few years ago, and I was, of course, very active in my daughter's schools as she was progressing through elementary, middle, and high school.
Thank you. Dr. Willens.
Oh, I'm the relative newcomer to Carroll County. I moved here in 2020. I have lived in Maryland since 2004. I spent 18 of my 20 years in active duty service in Maryland, and much of that in White Marsh. But my wife and I decided that given my animal hospital business, our relative respective families and friends, and the lifestyle and values here in Westminster, certainly it would have been easier to live several miles up the road in Pennsylvania for my taxes and on income as well as retirement, but this was our conscious choice to be here because of what we value in the city and in the county. I'm also a member of the Carroll County Veteran Independence Project, as mentioned, and the VFW Post 467. Previously, I've served as a junior vice and post surgeon for my previous post. I've done other community involvement has been with my synagogue of Beth Israel in Owings Mills, community theater. The bands that I sing with have raised over $35,000 for the Freedom Alliance Scholarship Fund, which goes to kids whose parents have been killed or wounded in action in Iraq and Afghanistan. We do that in the name of my casualty notification, Stephen McGowan, who was killed in Iraq on March 4th, 2005. And looking forward to more community involvement. This is our home in retirement, and where we bonded, where my kids are. My son's a senior at Westminster High School, and looking forward to serving more. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the bell, in case anybody was wondering. Mr. Dayhoff.
I like to go last every time. I think that was great. I'm a lifelong resident of Westminster. My family, the Warfield and the Wrights, have been in Carroll County since the 1600s. Since 1978, I've been an elected or appointed official with state and local government. I served in the United States Marine Corps Reserves during the Vietnam War. I'm chaplain of the American Legion, of the Westminster Fire Department, and the Maryland Troopers Association, Lodge Number 20. I did a number of environmental initiatives in the 80s and the 90s. I was chair of the Environmental Affairs Advisory Board during the 1990s when we brought forward a number of the environmental initiatives that we use today. I served at a number of ag commissions and boards in the 1980s. I'm active in Grace Lutheran Church. I'm the Assistant Secretary of the NAACP, and I'm a member of the Westminster Fire Department, and I've written history for the Baltimore Sun for the last 20 years. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to the next question, also sent in advance from a member of the Westminster community, and it's a rather lengthy one. We'll start with Mr. Pecoraro. There are multiple dilapidated properties in Westminster in need of repair, some located prominently on Main Street. During the 2019 forum, all three incumbents mentioned that older properties were not updated. These properties did not just fall into these categories. Why is the city not enforcing codes on a wide array of properties which affect the appearance and quality of life in the city? And why has this been allowed to go on, in some cases, for decades?
All right, thank you. So that's a great question. You know, it's one of the challenges we have in Westminster, and one of the problems we have is that, you know, people talk about property rights a lot out in the county, and of course, those property rights extend into the city as well as into the county. So there are limits to what the city can do to step onto other people's personal property and require them to do things. If it's a home that's owned and lived in by a family, you know, that makes it even harder. If it's a rental property, we have some ability to step in and enforce, you know, some code requirements, and we do. We cite these properties, you know, constantly, regularly, as we need to. When we need to have other involvement, perhaps if there's some kind of public disturbance, the police are there on hand to step in as they need to. So we take as aggressive a role as we can on these things. One of the challenges is the courts. You know, the courts will only, you know, allow us to enforce some of these standards so far. They give people, you know, repeated opportunities to fix things without allowing us to impose, you know, heavier penalties that we would like to. So it's a challenge. We have been preparing, although we have not yet moved forward with sort of an upgrade to our rental housing you know, licensing program, a registration program, to move to a more intensive program, a licensing program. But we haven't done it yet. We're working with the community. We want to make sure we've got as much buy-in as we can to make sure that that's going to be acceptable to the entire community.
Thank you. Dr. Willens?
This issue's been echoed by the rank and file of the troopers in the Sheriff's Department and Westminster PD in my ride-alongs that I did with them recently. 1.6 miles away from my home and a stone's throw from the Westminster Senior Center, there's a neighborhood many may not have heard of called Bishop's Garth. I visited there a couple of days ago and was warmly welcomed into the homes and enlightened by the personal stories there. These are not stories of New York or Chicago or Baltimore, but of Westminster. One woman's husband's in the hospital from black mold, and she can't visit him because she's immunosuppressed. Children and pets are repeatedly sick from black mold, others from lead in the water. There's termites, bed bugs, and vermin that can spread deadly leptospirosis. Utilities and appliances don't work. Stairwell and breezeway overlook railings are loose, and handicap accessibility is virtually non-existent. Any attempt at community is squelched, including inflatable kiddie pools, grills, or playgrounds, and tenants are penalized for speaking up. We as taxpayers subsidize these slumlords while they let out-of-county criminals and drugs in the back door. We cannot continue to virtue signal about Flint, Michigan, while we turn our backs on our fellow citizens who are suffering right here in Westminster. And sadly, these conditions are not unique to Bishop's Garth.
Thank you. Mr. Dayhoff.
Hey, thank you. I've been really frustrated about this, and we have brought it up, and some of my colleagues have brought it up a number of times over the last number of years. I think it's a wonderful question, and I'm really happy that we've got this out in the open. There's no doubt that Westminster citizens are asking the city leadership to strengthen our property maintenance codes. And with input and participation from the community, Westminster elected officials and staff are committed to taking a long and thoughtful look at what we can do to protect folks from substandard housing. Carroll County, local government, and municipalities across the state are also taking a hard look at this. Recently in Westminster, the addition of Mr. Eric Brown being appointed to our Director of Housing and Code Inspections has been a huge step forward in addressing disorderly nuisance housing. We have been working on this challenge since 1989, and that's when we used the county's livability code. I did property management for a living, and I know how hard this is. When I was mayor, we passed property management legislation in 2001, 2002, and 2004, and additional legislation was passed in 2016. However, we need to take another look at it and see what community standards and enforcements that we can bring about. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilbert.
As stated before, there are limits on what we can do if the property is owned by a homeowner. If, however, the property is a rental unit and the property is registered as such, we can fall back on our city HUD department and the regulations that we can ensure is done and addressed when we are there and looking at the property. As far as Bishop's Garth is concerned, our team has addressed all the issues brought to our attention during the visits, and on our last update of our city council by our director, we were assured that all the issues that we were aware of have been addressed. Discussion is occurring currently related to nuisance properties, and on the horizon there is a plan to look at rental licensing and nuisance property issues.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will start with Dr. Willens. Okay. So municipalities have a responsibility to their citizens to be financially stable. What are your plans to ensure the city remains financially stable well into the future?
I really appreciate that the current council has brought in a grant writer. I have experience with grants to the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars through my time in the Army, and I'd like to, no one really wants to grow government, but I think a few extra grant writers and reviewers would be worth their weight in gold to bring more money into the city in terms of state, federal, and private grants. I think, you know, for the future, when we grow our infrastructure and the city zoning, they have to mesh together. We're getting a lot of tech companies coming in that have a very small footprint or needs as far as traditional infrastructure, but are expanding and expounding upon our fiber network. I think transparency and accountability is extremely important. For example, the $3 million that was spent on the pool recently, not every resident has the ability financially or to get a season pass to be able to use that. I think if I join a gym and I'm paying for membership, that membership goes to the facilities, not taxpayer dollars. So if we're all paying taxes on that, I think it would be favorable and fair to give, especially the folks living in that pool area, but all of the citizens a couple of day passes for the summer. So I think accountability, fiscal accountability, and transparency.
Thank you. Thanks. Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you. I think there's three answers: economic development, and economic development. As a result of years of prudent, careful, steady, and thoughtful and conservative financial management, the city's financial health remains strong without any tax increases for many years. Our debt-to-asset and revenue ratios are well within peer metrics. Revenue continues to grow as a result of strong growth in our industrial and business tax sector as a result of carefully planned and managed economic development. However, we simply must be ever vigilant. We have many questions about the economy, including concern about record inflation, wage and price pressures, economic volatility in the bond and liquidity markets. International and national dynamics continue to cause additional concern. We have a great deal of infrastructure capital maintenance to address. In the back of our minds is the fact that the hottest topic of concern in the city of Westminster in the 1950s was the bond and indebtedness of the municipality as a result of massive infrastructure projects that accumulated in the 1920s and the 1930s. After World War II, the bill came due. We're looking at a lot of grant funding. The city's leveraged a great relationship with federal and state officials to use money from Annapolis and Washington to pay for things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilbert.
Being financially prudent is imperative, just as it is with one's own personal finances. The City of Westminster has a finance committee. As a council, we rely on the committee and their expertise in the budget and planning. The city's finances are strong due to a healthy revenue and careful fiscal management over the years. Over the past several years, the mayor and council have done well taking advantage of federal funds. For the first time in many years, while I have been on council, we have been able to obtain federal funds that have been awarded to the city. This helped rebuild the city's infrastructure, provide for funding for the pool, and move forward on key projects without incurring additional debt or raise taxes. My focus will be on continuing to try and obtain more federal funding when needed and to continue to be prudent in our spending, looking always toward the cathedral thinking of what our future projects will be and what they will look like.
Thank you. Mr. Pecoraro.
Well, thanks, Bob. So, as chair of the Finance Committee in the council for the last few years, I'm very proud that we've kept the tax rate the same for the last 10 years, 56 cents per $100 of assessed value, and that's, I think, something that we're very pleased about. That's due to a number of things. First of all, as others noted, careful financial management over the years, rising property values, which has generated additional income, careful annexations to add revenue-producing properties as opposed to ones that are going to create costs for the city, and an aggressive effort in the last few years to bring in outside dollars for projects like the pool, where we were able to use federal dollars to redo the pool, to fix the clock tower, state money for that. Most recently, we went down to Annapolis, and where I led an effort to bring $4 million back to the city to help us pay for the debt that we accumulated for the Westminster Fiber Network. And we are paying off the city's debt. The city's debt service continues to decline each year and will continue to decline each year into the future. We don't have any plans to borrow any additional funds, and so that's a burden that will be removed from the taxpayers as well. So we've been careful to be good stewards of the city's finances during this time and still provide the same high level of services that city residents have come to rely on.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to starting with Mr. Dayhoff this time. The master plan for the Wakefield Valley Park was approved in 2021 and has slowly been implemented by the city. We're about a decade past Wakefield's time as a golf course. Are you pleased with the direction and implementation of the master plan, and how do you see the park benefiting future generations?
I'm very pleased with it. The 187-acre Wakefield Valley Park is a legacy issue. We envision a large open space with low-impact use, such as bird watching and trail walking. Westminster's plans for Wakefield Valley Park include multi-purpose fields and an amphitheater. The updated master plan for Wakefield Valley Park includes an initiative for afforestation, reforestation, riparian buffers, 7 miles of wide trails, multi-purpose fields, and pickleball courts for Ann. I would like to see art, outdoor sculptures, and more of an arboretum-type approach to the park as the opportunity arises. After extensive community participation and input, on July 12, 2021, the Wakefield Valley Park Master Plan laid out a foundation for the future, phased development of the property, and also provides a groundwork for future city grant applications to finance park improvements. A new Wakefield Valley Park Pavilion is in the planning stages, and plans continue on renovating the old Wakefield Valley Conference Center and Durbin House. It'll take a few more years to complete, but however, as Westminster and Carroll County continue to grow, we envision a green oasis, a legacy park that will be enjoyed for many, many generations to come.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilbert.
For over 10 years, the deterioration of the conference center of the golf course has been witnessed by all who visit Wakefield Valley. The 187-acre park is planned to be a large open space area with low impact activities. I am pleased about the progress we are making. What I am most excited about, though, that you will see coming very shortly is the renovation of the conference center that is there and obviously falling down, turning into a pavilion. So that is very soon on the horizon. Guests will be able to use that facility and enjoy the legacy of Westminster and Carroll County. Trails will begin to wrap around the park from a pivotal location being that pavilion so that folks can enjoy the quiet and beauty the park has to offer. I believe not only the pavilion but the park will provide generations learning opportunities, particularly with the remodeling of the historic house that is beside the Dobbin House, which is beside the conference center, and it will be a place for family gatherings and celebrations, something that many communities do not have and something that it will be ultimately priceless.
Thank you. Mr. Pecoraro.
Bob, when the golf course was failing years ago, there was a plan brought to the city to redevelop the property with, I think, somewhere over 400 homes on that property. And it was something that we rejected at the time as not in keeping with the Wakefield Valley master plan. Soon thereafter, the city wound up taking control of the property. And I'm very pleased with how it's going because when we talked about it originally, we decided that we were in no hurry to make a big decision about what to do with that property. The mayor and council at the time recognized that this was a legacy decision. It was something that was going to impact the city for generations to come, and we wanted to get it right, so we weren't in a rush. We promised the community at the time that they weren't going to see any intensive development there, and we've kept that promise. We're looking at long-term open space. We've reforested some of it. Much of it's going to remain open to trails and other low-intensity impact types of activities there. And that's the kind of thing that we wanted to have there. It's going to be an oasis in the heart of the Westminster for a long time to come, and it's going to be something that our children and our children's children will be able to enjoy.
Thank you. Dr. Willens.
On its face, the park has a lot to offer, and not everyone can be pleased about everything. Can't please everyone. Some people wanted the golf course back. I'm not a golfer. It didn't matter much to me. Others didn't. Some enjoyed the prospect of added trails and planting of trees, while others felt that the trails were sufficient and spending money to plant the trees that would regrow on their own was not necessary. From the residents adjacent to the park, some of their concern expressed to me included these, as well as increased traffic and 2-year contracts for groundwork that were not being honored, such as uncut grass. I'm personally looking forward to utilizing the park and thank the council for their efforts, and also would look into eco-friendly activities and education on the environment, per my background. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move ahead. Safety and security has already been mentioned tonight. So safety and security is frequently cited as an issue, both in Westminster and pretty much everywhere. Is it, in your opinion, a major issue in Westminster, or is it more of a perception issue of the people of Westminster? And how would you respond to citizens, who question the safety of the city? And we can start with Mrs. Gilbert.
Hold on, I'm still writing the question. Perception is a major issue or perception, and how would I respond? Okay. So actually, we have a very safe, low crime rate. And our police department works well with our sheriff's department and other community organizations. Our police department is extremely well funded. Perception is quite a different story. It is different as we are in a county seat and we visually see the homeless. We often see folks on the street, those with mental health issues, which cause our perception to be perceived that we may have a higher crime rate. Safety is a unique definition for each person. What I might feel safe doing, someone may not. I'm pretty comfortable walking down an alley at 9 p.m. in the evening, but someone else may not, based on their own experiences. So public safety is the cornerstone of all city functions. Policing today is also very complex. Our chief has led an amazing police staff that is trained on working with the homeless, with addictions, mental health. We have programs such as QRT and our LEAD program that directly work with our homeless, directly work with those with mental health issues. Over the past 4 years, I have supported I guess I'm stopping at that point, or can I finish?
Finish.
Over the past 4 years, I supported community policing initiatives led by the chief. Our officers are working with community partners and doing outreaches and fairs, community events, and just walking the streets. If someone questioned their safety, I would honestly advise them to speak to one of our officers to try to alleviate their concerns. Sorry, I went over time.
Thank you. Does that cut into Mr. Pecораro's time?
No, it shouldn't, no.
Mr. Pecoraro.
Thanks. I'm happy to share with Ms. Gilbert. So, as certainly statistics show that we have a very low crime rate in Westminster, but I understand that it's not statistics that make people feel comfortable. When our last police chief retired and we were seeking a new police chief and a new leader for the department, we also knew that we needed a different way of policing Westminster. And so as we were talking with our current chief, in the interview process, we wanted to talk about, a different vision for how we were going to do this, a real community policing model. And that's what we've got now. We've got police officers who I think are more engaged and more active in the community than we've ever had. Police officers that are out of their cars, walking the streets, on their bikes, on scooters, whatever mode of transportation, walking around, engaging with business owners, engaging with residents. And I think that's really critical. They know the neighborhoods they're working in, and I think it's showing in how people feel. As Ms. Gilbert alluded to, we're the county seat. We're the center for a lot of services that get provided to people who are in need of services. And we see those folks on our streets, and that makes some people uncomfortable. And discomfort, makes people feel unsafe sometimes. They're not really unsafe. It's just that that's how they feel about it. We're working to try and deal with that as well. It's a challenge to make sure that we can do that, but we continue to work at it because it's important that people feel safe downtown.
Thank you. Dr. Willens.
Many of my neighbors in my neighborhood have moved here because of the relative safety, and I thank the members of the council and others who came before for establishing that. Safety means feeling secure in your home, at work, in your vehicle, and walking down the street, regardless of the neighborhood, financial status, or your identity. As a parent concerned about the safety of our children and the community, I will support and enable all levels of law enforcement for all they risk and sacrifice on our behalf in their ongoing collaborative mission against crime and drugs. I'm grateful for the late shift ride-alongs with a state trooper, Carroll County Sheriff's Deputy, and Westminster Police. And if I'm elected, those ride-alongs will continue. These are not a one-off while running for office. I believe in stopping smaller gateway crimes in their tracks, thereby curbing more egregious felonies. In my opinion, and coming from New York City originally, there are no petty crimes concerning injury to life, limb, or livelihood. More substantial crimes are fewer in number, thanks to our finest and bravest, but those are usually committed by not committed by citizens of our city or even our county. And as I mentioned before, the slumlords need to be reined in. And I see the rest of my time to
Thank you.
Dayhoff.
Mr. Dayhoff.
In full disclosure, I'm a fire and police chaplain, and I work with a lot of these incidents week in and week out. I get it that people are concerned about crime and safety. We live in a city with our families. We also live in our city with our families and our friends, and we want everyone to be safe. Rest assured, we have an excellent police department that is well-trained and works well with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office to continue to be vigilant about public safety. Fortunately, we live in a community that's very supportive of law enforcement. Under the leadership of Westminster Police Chief Tom Ledwell and County Sheriff Jimmy DeWeese, we are leaders in innovative police initiatives. Several years ago, when police reform was a hot topic, a national topic, we had already adopted much of the reforms, including such things as 8 Can't Wait. We also have innovative harm reduction and community transparency and accountability programs, such as the LEAD program and the Quick Response Team, which is a partnership that we have with the Health Department. LEAD provides case management and diverts eligible individuals into support services and away from jail and prosecution. And the Westminster Police Department Quick Response Team attempts to engage overdose victims in order to provide them with support services and treatment resources. We can't arrest our way out of the current challenges. We aggressively fund and support law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the next question, we'll start with Mr. Pecoraro. The city often has to work with the delegation in Annapolis and at the county level as well. What can you personally bring to these discussions, and what are your strengths as a team player?
Well, first of all, I think I am a team player, and I think that that's critical, as we do this. Going to Annapolis, going to the county, going to the federal government for that matter, all these things are about building relationships of trust. Trust that, we in Westminster are going to do the right thing, the smart thing with whatever monies we're able to get, that we're able to bring back to the community. It's easy to name drop and say, this person, that person. That's not really what it's about. What it's about is being a good communicator. It's about being able to go, and have an honest and frank conversation, to share good information, and to be able to make a persuasive argument. I think I'm skilled in doing that. I think we've done a good job with that here in Westminster over the last few years. I think some great evidence of that is the effort that I led this past year during the legislative session to go to Annapolis to ask for resources to help us with pay our fiber debt. A lot of other communities, we were leaders in building the fiber network, and since that time there have been other federal and state programs to pay for those projects, and Westminster was ahead of the curve, so we weren't eligible for those. So we went to Annapolis. We made the case that we should receive some recognition of being a pioneer in that effort, and we were rewarded with $4 million to help with pay for the cost of the fiber network. And so that's the kind of work you can do if you go and you make a good case and work with people that you need to persuade. And we had a great team of members doing that all throughout the city.
Thank you. Dr. Willens.
20 years of Army leadership, I've learned how to build trust and consensus from people from all walks of life to accomplish the mission. I know how to conduct thorough research and compose a comprehensive and cogent thesis, then articulate and advocate for it. I briefed general officers and senior executive personnel, including ambassadors and undersecretaries of defense, with confidence and professionalism. I know officials at the county and state level and have a good rapport with most of them. I can speak with them from a multidisciplinary background in science, medicine, public health, safety, security, acquisitions, and business in their language from their perspective, so that everyone gleans a greater understanding of the big picture. And I may not know as many specific folks, say, from Carroll County in the legislature. I know them from across the state, having lived in other communities in the state, and I've also lived in Minnesota, North Carolina, Texas, Connecticut. So I've been exposed to folks from all walks of life and ways of thinking to be able to form that consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you. We pride ourselves in building and maintaining relationships and friendships with local, county, state, and national officials in a nonpartisan manner. The Westminster Common Council is not very threatening. Being a Westminster elected official is what we want to do. We're not stepping on anyone's toes by trying to take their job away from them. Collectively, we all grew up in Westminster and Carroll County. We grew up with much of the local, county, and state leadership. They are our neighbors and our friends. We serve in civic organizations together. Our kids go to school together or play sports together. We go to church together. We have all had our ups and downs, and throughout it all, we are all there for each other. We have worked with all these folks for decades. We work hard to see to it that everyone succeeds in a nonpartisan manner, in a friendly and thoughtful manner. We want our friends and our colleagues to succeed and self-actualize. I've been an appointed or elected official for a long time. Over the years, I've made many friends who have gone on to higher office. They are in my cell phone. We text each other and keep in touch with each other about everything from public policy to current events, planning for the future, and asking how the family and kids are doing. Our current board of elected officials are propelled by an unselfish Westminster First culture. Our coalition approach to governance ensures that we represent everyone in Westminster. We cherish diversity and celebrate our differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilbert.
Effective communication is fundamental to any successful relationship. I believe listening, sitting down, and talking with each other in meetings together is imperative. During my past 4 years, I have encouraged the idea of our commissioners and city council to meet regularly to discuss topics in person. These meetings began and continue today and have brought about effective and positive communication. I have positive relationships with the commissioners, the delegates, and I have brought and which I've brought and bring to the table the ability to talk with anyone from any background. Doing this job is not necessarily about being right. It is about doing what is right. Sometimes that means brainstorming and compromise. I believe I bring the ability to compromise, to come together, to listen, and work together as a team, because in the end, we all choose to run for office to help our city, our county, and our community. And if we all work together, we not only work better, but we achieve more.
Thank you. This question will start with Dr. Willens. What is your view of Westminster's gigabyte fiber? Has it been a good investment, and do you see this benefiting Westminster's future?
I reached out to some local tech companies recently to get their take on this issue as well. I'm not sure how I feel about the initial investment of $18 million. Ting Internet had a rough start in 2009 and probably could have started in more business areas of Carroll in Westminster instead of Carroll Lutheran Village, for example. But since then, they've progressed and have been a secure and reliable part of providing gigabit capability to more Westminster citizens. Comcast is running fiber now as well, but Ting runs it all the way to the building. In some of the more underserved areas, we still need to ensure that it is accessible and affordable for children in their education and for adults in their careers and continuing education. Other homegrown companies such as Tomlin Technology have contributed to IT infrastructure and support without the burden of a large footprint of space, infrastructure, and support. And then, of course, there's Magic and their educational, business, transportation, and other collaborations as a force multiplier for the fiber network in a fledgling Westminster Silicon Valley. For the greater Westminster area and Carroll County, there's great opportunities for fiber in agriculture and environmental conservation, and Magic is already doing soil sample analysis. Now we need to keep it going and improve on the return on our investment by encouraging more IT partners. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Dayhoff.
I love crazy, fast Ting Internet. After years of planning and a huge capital expenditure, as of September 13th, 2017, construction and installation of the new Westminster Fiber Network was complete. Today, access to fast and reliable Internet is a necessity right along with water and electricity. Fiber is the new highway, a gateway to the future, and critical to the high quality of life we enjoy in Westminster. It is how we work from home. It's how we order goods and services, do our homework, and watch programs together as a family. In addition, the availability of broadband networks is one factor that organizations take into account when deciding whether to move or remain in a particular community and create jobs and tax base. Thanks to the cathedral forward thinking of leadership that has gone before us, we have a local, municipal-centric, crazy, high-speed fiber internet service in Westminster that is, for the most part, answerable to folks in our community. To do this, the city was way ahead of the curve and did some risk-taking that really has paid off. Much of the debt service the city took on will be indemnified by the city and by the state and federal government that is increasingly getting it, that universal internet service is a luxury, is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilbert.
Thank you. The Westminster Fiber Network is the first and currently only community-wide publicly owned fiber network in the Mid-Atlantic region and provides market-leading broadband services. Basically, some of the fastest internet on the planet. The presence of the fiber opens new job opportunities and economic value for our community. With Westminster's partnership with Magic and our ability to provide gigabit fiber, it allows us to be an attractive location for entrepreneurs, companies, and professionals to locate their business and their families. During COVID, we all were witness to the huge benefits city residents had who had Ting. Today, already occurring mostly because of Graham Dodge and his work with Magic, we are exposed to startup programs through 1 Million Cups, cybersecurity competitions, healthy smart home opportunities, Autonomous Robotic Innovation Center, which just opened. We are continuing to drive innovation and entrepreneurship, raising our community to be a technology hub. For communities to grow, they need to change with the times, and technology now is the center of growth. Luckily for us, and we had forward-thinking colleagues, we were able to offer our fiber as a draw for businesses and residents to locate here.
Thank you. Mr. Pecoraro.
We launched the fiber network when it was clear that no other major supplier was willing to build a fiber network here, and it still hasn't happened. We built the fiber network. We built it in phases. It goes to every home and business in the city of Westminster. And I think it's become a tremendous asset as we went into the pandemic and people were forced to work from home, take classes from home, do a variety of things virtually that they otherwise had never planned on doing. Having that gigabit speed fiber was a tremendous blessing for people in Westminster, and we had people outside the city begging us to extend the network, outside the city limits. And so I think it's been tremendously successful. It's well on its way to both provide, earning its keep in terms of, where we'd hoped it would be in terms of bringing back revenue into the city. And it's also generating a lot of economic activity. We stood up Magic to be able to make use of the fiber network and capitalize on having it here. And they're doing a great job in providing additional educational opportunities for our students in technology, as well as attracting, technology entrepreneurs into the city to try and start their businesses here. So it's part of our vision of how we could make Westminster, a place where people could live and work. And I think it's succeeding very well.
Thank you. Let's turn to a question from a member of the studio audience. Why does the city run a fitness center in direct competition with the private sector? And this time we'll start with Mr. Dayhoff.
Oh, thank you. I thought we had an agreement that I wouldn't go first. I think one of the first articles I ever read about providing recreational services for the city of Westminster was around 1922. It's always been an emphasis it's always been a demand of the citizens of the city of Westminster for us to provide recreational opportunities. I think the Westminster Family Center has been a wonderful asset to the city of Westminster. Our citizens greatly appreciate it. I don't necessarily see it as competition with other gyms. We provide a niche community, family-oriented facility and recreational opportunity for folks. I'm a huge supporter of the Family Center. I'm a huge supporter of recreation and parks in the city of Westminster. I think the pool is a critical asset to the city. When businesses look to places like Westminster to locate, one of the first things they want to look at is our arts and cultural programs. They also want to look at our recreational programs, and the city does a really darn good job of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilbert?
So there was a time not too long ago, I believe it was during COVID, when there was discussion amongst the council of closing our fitness center. During that time, we had an overwhelming response from the community and were inundated by multiple letters. I believe it was over 150. At that point in time, I spoke to many residents. I actually began going to the recreational center. And what I realized was that, one, we weren't in competition with other gyms. It's not a gym, it's a recreational center. It provides far more support and a feeling of family to our community than a gym does. Not to say that some of the gyms probably do provide, a feeling of family. But when you go there and you attend the classes, there's a unique feeling that is there, and it was obvious through the letters that we received that support was absolutely amazing. Thus, we decided to keep it open and reimagine the services that we provide, where today we not only have reimagined those services, but we are making a profit with the center. And on top of that, we are expanding our programming to include pickleball, things like archery, and we're responding to the community and the needs, and even assisting some of our homeschool children. So to the end, I believe our fitness center is what makes it a community.
Thank you. Mr. Pecoraro?
I think the fitness center has been a great investment in the community. It's tremendously popular. People use it all the time, and as Mrs. Gilbert said, when there was an attempt, a suggestion, by a couple of members, from the elected body a few years ago about closing it down, the public reacted strongly against it. And, so I think that's a testament to how popular it is. It's really, you've got to look at fitness activities sort of holistically. And the fitness center is recreational opportunities holistically. And the fitness center is really an integral part of a larger system of parks and recreational opportunities that the city operates. It serves, a variety of levels of our community. It's affordable, it's walkable downtown, and provides a whole range of activities for people that need, need or want to be involved in those types of opportunities. So, once in a while, I've heard a few complaints about from other business owners saying that they think we're in competition. But when we sat down and talked with them about it, we really offer different things than they do. And so I don't think that there is any real direct competition. And if they want to offer those kinds of services in our community, then I think we take a look at whether or not we needed to operate a fitness center. But until we see that kind of activity here, we're going to stick with operating the fitness center for the benefit of the citizens.
Thank you. And Dr. Willens.
In deference to my colleagues who gave very thorough answers, and I really don't disagree concerning the importance of the fitness center or that there's that much consternation about it. As a business owner myself, I've tried to create a niche for my animal hospital for the types of animals that we see, the services that we offer, so that we stand apart. And I think that businesses that do that don't really have anything to worry about concerning services that the city provides. My only maybe difference or concern here would be just to ensure that the people who or want to use the fitness center have some incentives, passes, or subsidies for use of the fitness center and its activities, similar to the pool. I think if it's being paid for by their tax dollars, there should be some accessibility or deference paid to them for the use of the facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's again turn to the audience and take a question. We'll start with Mrs. Gilbert this time. Do you have any plans to revisit the water allocation priority list? And if so, how would you change it?
Right now, I guess that's going to be a couple different answers to that question. The I&I project, which we are literally getting to the end part of, which has removed and reduced the infiltration of groundwater and has sealed the cracks in our pipes. We went from 2018 pushing 16.5 million gallons of water through the plant that was designed for 5 million gallons to now pushing 3 million through our plant, which is enabling us to have more water and thus have more growth potential. So in and of itself, with that and the horizon of our water reuse project, yes, there are plans to revisit water allocation, and that as a full body will be in discussion in the future. And how do you see this benefiting Westminster's future? Well, this will open up the ability to provide that water, will open up the ability for us to look into zoning, change our zoning, look into the future of looking at downtown Westminster and expanding downtown Westminster, and really looking at it from a point of view and a perspective of 15, 20, and 25 years and what Westminster can look like and what that will look like now that our water is available.
Thank you. Mr. Pecoraro.
Let's talk a little bit about what water allocation is first. I think that's critical. So the reason we have water allocation in Westminster is because, and that what we're talking about is providing water for new development. And the reason we have water allocation is because we're under a consent decree with the Maryland Department of the Environment. Essentially, we have a moratorium on new development until we find a way to increase Westminster's water supply. We've stuck all the soda straws in the ground we can to get water out, and there isn't any more opportunity to do that. So we're going to move forward, as we've discussed a little bit, with our water reuse project. Until that's up and running, we're going to be continually faced with budgeting the amount of new water we're able to bring online, which is a small amount every year. So the mayor and council made a choice, some years ago when we were faced with this and we had a little bit of water to keep putting out each year, that we would decide, what made sense for the city? What kind of development did the city need to be able to have additional water? And so we prioritized development that brought jobs and new amenities to the city that we really needed. And we made residential, put residential low on that list. And so that's how we've done it each year since then. When water reuse becomes available and we have additional water to budget, we'll change those allocations, and they'll increase, significantly, or, to some extent at that time, probably, and we'll be able to have more of different types of development. But until then, we're going to be continuing with the current system we have.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Willens.
I'm a big fan of this program. The conservation is not only important, but it's also deals with the greater Chesapeake watershed preservation and ecosystem health. As an environmental pharmacologist and toxicologist, I've worked with aquatic species at Mystic Aquarium, and now currently I work part-time at the National Aquarium. I've done aquatic toxicology models for research. But I think, as has been alluded to, the zoning is an issue, and I mentioned earlier that we have not done a thorough scrub of that in quite a long time, and that's something I'm looking forward to doing and pledged to do early on, because that needs to mirror the growth and any kind of growth in the city. And when I was in Iraq as well, I dealt quite a bit with public health initiatives, including canal clearing systems and water purification and reclamation. So I do have this somewhat in my toolbox in the past, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it and getting involved in it.
Thank you. Mr. Dayhoff.
I think the water allocation priority list is going to constantly take some tweaking and some adjustments. I'm a big fan of it. I think they've done a very good job with a very, very difficult task. To reiterate, we don't really have much choice. We're under a consent decree with the MDE. Back in the early 2000s, there was a very severe drought, and MDE in the state of Maryland mandated that we take another look at water allocation. I'd rather that we do it than have a circuit court do it someplace. We have an excellent administrator over the program. It's not going to make everyone happy all the time, but I like our prioritizations, and I like the allocations and the decisions that we've made. We can always tweak it if you provide us with a good argument as to how it is that we could adjust it. The challenge is that we only have but so much water, and a community such as the City of Westminster needs to set some standards and needs to set some priorities, and I think we've done a really good job of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I know at least one of our candidates has a place to be tonight, so we have time for just one more question. It's a question we end with a lot of the times here at these forums, and so what we're asking is there anything that we haven't touched upon tonight, any topics or issues that are important to you or important to the City of Westminster that you'd like to take these next 90 seconds to talk about? And this time we'll start with Mr. Pecoraro.
Well, I always get these wild ones like that. There's a lot of things we could talk about tonight. The city's a big organization. We provide a wide variety of services to a lot of different kinds of people and a lot of different populations. In years past, Westminster didn't always grow wisely, and the surrounding area of the county was not well managed either. Since I joined the council, and as I said earlier, I've been on, off and on. I've served for a while, went off the council, served again, went off the council, and I'm back on again. But during that time, we've had a common vision for the city that about how we wanted to grow and the kinds of things we wanted to see happen in our city. And I think that what we need from our citizens is for everybody to be part of that conversation. It affects a wide range of things. It affects things like, how do we use our water? Do we do projects like fiber? What kind of policing do we want to have in the city? What's our relationship going to be with McDaniel College? These are important questions that we all need to be part of talking about. How do we deal with the homeless population here in the city? What kind of community do we want to be when we think about how we treat each other? So, these are the kind of things that we encourage people to continually talk with us about. And I hope that this isn't going to be the only time that the people watching this engage with the city over these kinds of things. I hope people will come to council meetings, they'll contact us, and they'll share their thoughts on these kinds of issues as we go forward, because we really need that input.
Thank you. Dr. Willens.
I guess I would speak a little broadly about important issues for Westminster. It's a diverse community of individuals with unique concerns, so it's as broad as that. For the residents in underserved areas, the most pressing issue might be the black mold in their apartments or the influx of crime from neighboring counties. Business owners and potential entrepreneurs, on the other hand, may be more concerned about the water scarcity hindering economic growth. Parents often express frustration over their children being bullied or assaulted, and they want to know who will protect them. Additionally, Westminster has been grappling with a drug epidemic since the 1990s, which has only worsened with the introduction of fentanyl, resulting in the loss of loved ones. Community leaders told me that the primary issue sometimes lies with divisiveness created by destructive political campaigns. So I think that's, in general, not one specific thing. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dayhoff.
Well, I would like to talk about cathedral thinking, which is one of the things that the city of Westminster does extremely well. It's well known that we think out of the box, we color out of the lines, and this is the umbrella under which our relationship with McDaniel College falls under water reuse, our water reuse program. The parking meters drive me absolutely nuts. I would like to address a lot of these things, but the way we look about them is that we have cathedral thinking in the city of Westminster. And cathedral thinking, if you look back upon the etiology of where it is that the term came from, it came from many of the cathedrals in Europe were built and planned for by folks who would never, ever see the completion of the project. And that's what the city of Westminster does. You look this up in the dictionary and you see a picture of Westminster staff and elected officials. We put things into place, we plan things, we contribute to the future with a vision. We pride ourselves with being colorful, out-of-the-box thinking to solve complex problems and build and maintain a strong foundation for future leaders to capitalize upon. We do crazy things like crazy fast internet, parking garages, playing music on Main Street, strolls and festivals, water reuse, Wakefield Valley Park, murals, public art, sculptures. We like what we do. Working for the city of Westminster is a lot of fun.
Great. And Mrs. Gilbert.
I believe we are right now poised at looking at our city in a much larger and wider view. I think it's now that we need to take some concentrated effort as a council with our employees to include a good long-range Main Street revitalization plan, economic development, and focus on a vision of what we can see that Main Street looking like. What will that be? Does it include just Main Street or maybe several blocks over? I really don't know, and that is what a long-range plan is sent to do. It's all a balancing act, and there are many things in that process to consider, such as the needed resources like fire, police, sewer, water. Also, you know, what does it look like for our recreational center? What is it with our programming? Wakefield Valley. There are just numerous topics that you have asked us questions about tonight, but just numerous topics that even come up that we wouldn't even plan on. But what is that specific targeted 15, 20, or even 25-year plan? And what does that include? So I think that's where the importance of what the next 4 years will be, and together with Westminster citizens and my colleagues, I will continue to work to improve the city and listen to everyone's concerns.
Thank you. And that concludes the question and answer portion of the forum tonight. We got to 10 questions, and very enlightening. Appreciate the answers. We'll now take closing statements. So each of you will, again, as we mentioned earlier, each of you will have 2 minutes to make a summary statement. And this time we're going to start with Dr. Willens.
Thank you. My plan for One Westminster focuses on safety, prosperity, and accountability, as I've expounded upon this evening. New leadership with fresh ideas results from term limits, a national pledge I signed last year that still holds today. This is an issue that should and does transcend party lines. In a 2013 Gallup poll, 82% of Republicans, 79% of independents, and 65% of Democrats favored term limits. Some might argue that it takes a term or two to hit your stride, but I'm not that slow a learner. Every 2 to 3 year leadership position I held in the Army did not afford me the luxury of a half-term equivalent to listen, ramp up, excel, and transition my job to the next person better than I found it. I may have been painted as a relative newcomer, but we all know that you can't take the pulse of the city using your thumb, because it has its own pulse. Regardless of the results of the election, I wish to maintain the harmonious relationship between the council members if elected and support their continued efforts if I am not elected. Life goes on, and resilience is a critical component of life. Either way, the citizens of Westminster win because, one, hopefully this encourages more people to step up to serve their community, and two, contested elections are always more vibrant and enlightening. I thank again my colleagues for their service to the city and learning more about them through the issues here tonight. And as Mr. Pecoraro mentioned about engaging others in the community, I appreciate being able to engage this evening. Westminster citizens have a fourth and clear option for City Council on May 9th, and I respectfully ask for your votes so that I may serve you, the residents of Westminster, as I have served America. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dayhoff.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we do this a little longer or not wait 4 years to do it again. I'd like to thank the Community Media Center for this opportunity to share my leadership vision for the future of the city of Westminster. It's been an honor to serve the last 4 years with council members Ann Gilbert and Greg Pecoraro, along with Mayor Mona Becker, council members Dan Huff and Tony Cavacci. We work for you. We celebrate our community's diversity. We serve all the citizens of the city of Westminster. We build community. We advocate for public safety. We promote historic downtown business district, economic development, and local employment. We will take our community into the future with common sense solutions, with steady, uniform, and consistent leadership. We are excited about the opportunity to continue working together for the city of Westminster. We are working hard to thoughtfully put together a relentlessly positive and kind campaign. In the last several years, we've gotten a lot accomplished with fresh new ideas based upon decades of leadership and experience in the city of Westminster, but there's still a lot of work to do. I would like to roll up my sleeves, work hard, and put all these experiences to work and do it again. Thank you for this opportunity to ask you to vote for me, Ann Gilbert, and Greg Pecoraro in the upcoming election in the city of Westminster on May 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've got some time next week if you want to run it back again.
Okay. I'm good for that. So is that a second? I think that's the second, Mr.
Great.
President.
Mrs. Gilbert.
And I thought the last was the closing statement. Thank you, Bob, and again, thanks to the Community Media Center for allowing us the opportunity this evening. I also want to thank everyone here. I've been blessed to have been able to serve as your council member for the past 4 years, and would be honored to serve 4 more years on council representing you, the citizens of Westminster. I am proud of the work I have done alongside my colleagues, but feel we have much more work to do in our beautiful city. Together with Westminster citizens and my colleagues, I will continue to work to improve the city, to listen to the concerns expressed by the residents of our community, to keep Westminster a place everybody wants to live, work, play, and visit, today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. Thank you again, and I'm asking you to cast your vote for me on your election day, Tuesday, May 9th.
Thank you. And before I turn it back over to Professor Watley, Mr. Pecoraro, you've got the last word.
All right, well, thank you, Bob, and thanks to the Community Media Center for once again hosting a Candidates Forum here in Westminster. I want to continue my service on the council because I care deeply about this community. This is what I want to do. I want to be on the Westminster City Council. I don't want to use it as a springboard to some other office. I want to do this job. I want to be able to give back to this community that I care about and make it a better place to live and work. I'm proud of my colleagues over the years that I've had the chance to work with. Some have been more conservative than me. Some have been more liberal than me. But we've all shared a vision for our city, the kind of place that we all want to live and raise our families and have a good chance to earn a salary that will allow us to take care of those families and to enjoy our lives while we're here. Westminster, I believe, is a well-managed city. We've provided a lot of great services for people. We have great, fun outdoor festivals that people come from all over the region to attend that creates economic activity for our businesses. And we're doing a lot of things to make this a better place to live along those lines. As we work to solve our water problem, I'm confident that we're going to be able to have additional economic activity, which is going to lead to the ability to complete our zoning update, which will allow businesses downtown to be able to thrive and provide the kind of services that people are looking for. I believe it's always important to listen, to care, and to act. And that's what this mayor and council have tried to do. I'm proud of the work that my colleagues and I have done together. I'd be proud to continue to serve with the same team, and I hope that the people of Westminster will give us another chance to serve all of you over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to thank all of our candidates tonight for participating in tonight's forum, and thanks especially to the audience members who tuned in to learn about our candidates. Also, a special thanks to everyone who submitted questions. As a reminder, this forum has been recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing on our website at carrollmediacenter.org and on YouTube. We will also be rebroadcasting on Comcast Cable channels HD 1086 and channel 19. Before we go, I'd like to encourage everyone to learn more about the candidates running for their Westminster Council by visiting CMC's website at carrollmediacenter.org, and of course, to come out and vote on May 9th. Thank you for joining us, and good night.